and welcome to the news. This week quite a bit has happened. It seems the chain of attacks by the Islamic State have not stopped. Mali, the current target, is being under siege. There are over 100 taken to a hotel. The hotel is called Radisson Blu, and there's 170 roundabouts, and at least 27 have died. The Mali soldiers have been sent to control the hotel and to get the civilians back to safety. Obviously, the roots of this in Mali, in North Africa, have formed from the historic control of North Africa from people like Salah al-Din. So, it's happening around the kind of areas that they used to attack, so it seems they're taking a lot of roots from old Islamic movements. Okay, next up, the UN have united against the Islamic State. Two of the obvious ones are France, which has dropped 20 bombs on the ISIS HQ in Raqqa, which is probably going to kill a lot of civilians, unhappily for a lot of people. And Russia has been pounding the IS after they have bombed their ship, so the chain is at this current time the bombing of the Russian plane, the France attacks, Beirut attacks, Mali attacks, and some other attacks around within Syria. So the Tories have showed their true nature, which is quite schoolboyish. In the current PMQs, the Prime Minister's questions, this week they've been shouting and jeering even more than previously, and have been showing that they are just a bunch of public school idiots, really. On top of this, the Tory party is under a bit of scrutiny from quite a few sectors. First and foremost is the Minister for Health, Jeremy Hunt, who is in trouble over his immense 95% strike rate, which 95% is the highest amount of doctors that have ever voted for a strike. So he is under massive amounts of scrutiny for his terrible health reforms, and for saying that the doctors aren't going to be willing to do things such as helping under terrorist attacks. He's using the terrorist attacks as a guise to put these reforms in, and these reforms are basically privatising the sector. Michael Gove, an ex-Minister of Education and also ex-Chief Whip of the Tory party. He is now the Minister of Justice, and he's under attack for his half-arsed justice reforms. So another minister who's being attacked for his reforms being incredibly cheap. And these reforms are overworking the sector just as much as the reforms in the health sector. And he's offering Mars bars to keep each person quiet. Like, it's absurd, the fact that this supposedly professional is giving chocolate bars out to try and silence people who are whistleblowers. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. It's really, really stupid. But at least we have something in which people can unite against in the cause. We can unite against the Tories, constantly cutting things and bringing forth reforms that are actually depleting the current service that is being given by each sector. An Israeli spy has been freed from the US prisons. He was imprisoned in the 70s for giving away naval secrets to Israel, and now he's free, which means that there's a possibility that people will ease up a bit on whistleblowers, although the pro-Israeli movement in America is quite strong, so it might just be the fact that he's an Israeli. However, if it isn't just that, then people like Snowden should just be brought right back in. I mean, there's a difference between being a spy for another country and just giving away information to the public, and the public are part of the country. They are that shows that you are you have solidarity with the government and stuff like that. Whereas if you're if you're giving stuff to Israel, then you're not really showing any solidarity with the country at all. You're showing solidarity with Israel. Anyway, the final news item mainly is the Nitish Kumar, who has sworn oath to become Bihar leader. Nitish Kumar is a socialist, and he, after resigning in 2014, has won the election in 2015 amidst the political crisis. His dad was a freedom fighter, and he was close to the Gandhian Bihar Vibhuti. So, on top of all of this, he is possibly a massive hope for the Bihar crisis that could cause a lot of good for the world. So, let me just move my computer for a minute before it runs out of battery. And next up is the section of Remember the Victims. Obviously, we have to first remember the people, the 27 at least killed in the siege of Mali, and those killed in the bombings of Raqqa, and those killed in the bombings of Iraq by the American government. On top of that, patients have been dying during the strikes because of the lack of surgery being happening. Although during the strikes, I reckon the surgery would have been half-assed anyway, because they've been forced to do all of these extra jobs that they are too tired to take part on. They already work 7 days a week. They already work the maximum amount of time they can without basically falling asunder to the entirety of health. Because if you're in the health sector and you yourself are unhealthy because of the health sector reforms, it doesn't really show anything good for your government. The next section, hope. As always, we quite need it this time. So, Rocket Fiber, which is a fiber company that set up fiber optic networks, has been setting up network in Detroit, one of the worst habited places in America, and that's because of, since the collapse of the American motor industry, a lot of people moved out, and the housing prices has gone down massively since then. So that means that there's a lot of big factories and a lot of warehouses that people can buy pretty cheap, and this means that on top of the fact that the 10 gigabyte fiber optic cables being priced at half the price of 10 megabytes elsewhere in the United States, on top of that means that it could possibly be, instead of a Silicon Valley, a Silicon Desert, because obviously the abandonedness of it could bring that to fruition. This could mean a new, renewed movement of internet, basically, in America. This has been called upon since the 80s, when companies such as Time Warner were asked to set cables across the entire country, fiber cables, but they didn't, and they took the money for themselves. So this is a great thing with the lack of plurality in America. Whilst in Britain we still have some plurality, $80 this will cost, which is quite a lot to most people. However, it's not quite a lot when you compare it to the fact that it's around $160 in some states for 10 megabytes of internet. So, Lower Austria has started to be completely powered by green energy. 100% of one of the largest, possibly the largest region in Austria is now being entirely powered by green energy rather than any fossil fuels. This shows that in the modern day, it's not a simple thing of us not being advanced enough in the energy sector to be able to reform completely into green energy, as many people have been arguing. Even scientists that I know have argued with me on it and said that that is a reason that we can't do it at this moment in time. Showing them stuff like this will mean that it obviously can happen, because an entire region, highly dense region of Europe, is now being powered by green energy. It doesn't show any goodwills to the people who are against green energy, really. A church in Salem County has been feeding 4 particular inmates of the prison there, because they have been working a lot for the community. And this is a good sign, because obviously church is meant to be for people being absolved of their sins, and being absolved of your sins may not be exactly something the prisons can do, but instead a church can. And so if they're giving them meals, this means that they have at least partly forgiven them for their crimes. Petersburg people have raised $110 for not a church, but a mosque. The only mosque in Petersburg has been completely destroyed by a firebombing, and now $110,000 has been raised to rebuild it, which is quite brilliant that the local people aren't as Islamophobic as a lot of America seem to be. They've been raising money as a community for the community, because the community does need decent religious freedom. Again, this time it is a church that is giving out, basically. They've said to I'm sorry if I say this wrong, the Ram Dom Hindu temple in the area, which the church has offered space to the people who used to use it, has been burned down. So on top of that, we have Virginia, which is Bernie Sanders' state, and they have completely destroyed unemployment among veterans. They have housed 1,432 have been housed since last October, and it's brilliant, because Bernie Sanders, obviously one of his main policies is, if you can fund a war, then you should be able to fund the veterans who come back with ailments. You should be able to fund their care. And him showing how it is done is very much needed in the current political atmosphere of America, which seems to be full of idiots. Anyway, so next up we have the fact that Carol Schumann, I don't know exactly how that's pronounced, she's been donating to children who are homeless for quite a while now, like once a year, usually around Christmas, as a Christmas present. This year she has bought an entire toy store which was going out of business, and she's going to donate that, which is an incredibly charitable thing to do. And it's much more charitable than, I would say, even giving to charity, because giving to charity these days means giving to a corporation that will take the majority of the money for themselves. 300 Israelis have been stranded in Montana, which I would expect to be one of the places with the bigots in it, because it's in the south. But in fact, that is untrue. These Israelis have been given food, proper food, that is kosher, and that's by locals. Myanmar is rated the most charitable place on earth. This may not be exactly news, but it has been found out by a recent study that they are the most charitable place in the world, which is in China, the place which is known for being the most insecure when it comes to human rights, especially among the first world. So on to the next section, the last section, music. Oh, we've got quite a bit of good music this week. So for rock, we have Monster Trucks, Don't Tell Me How to Live, and The Enforcer. These two are separate singles. You can look them up on Spotify. Soon, I hope they will be releasing their full album. Ringo Death Star's Pure Mood. Ringo Death Star are a kind of indie band. If you like indie music, then you'll definitely like them, I reckon. If you don't, then your choice, I guess. Kurt Cobain's montage of Heck, the home recordings. Now, these are some of the recordings that previously weren't released and have been released after his death, posthumously. So, give them a listen to. I reckon they're quite good. They definitely sound like Kurt Cobain. It's not like it's a completely different sound, because Kurt Cobain did manufacture the sound himself. He created it. He influenced incredible amounts of music with this new creation of a style, influenced by jazz, influenced by rock, influenced by metal, influenced by everything good about the modern music. Anyway, another legend, David Bowie, has released a new single, Black Star, and I think it's quite brilliant. It's quite a long song, and it's very proggy, but proggy in a good way. And the weakest part are his lyrics, and if anybody knows about him and his lyrics, they know that means that the song is bloody brilliant, because his lyrics are never bad. These lyrics are good, and maybe even as good as some of his best songs in the past. The standout is Foals What Went Down. Foals, a band that formed against prog, the natural prog image and prog sound, are a math rock-ish band, but more of a British version. I reckon they're very good. They played with a few people in the past on TMI Fridays, which is a show that formed recently. They played with the Eagles of Death Metal, which I also quite like, and they're very grindy. They're like a dirtier version of math rock, but they aren't going into straight up prog, because obviously they don't agree with the proggy sounds that London is forming at the moment. So, the next genre, pop. Formation Under the Tracks has been released, which I think is alright. I mean, pop isn't really my sort of genre, but these ones have been quite good this week. The Shoes have released Chemicals, which is also quite good. Enya has released Dark Sky Island, and the standout by far is Mute Math's Vitals. This is a really, really, it's what pop should try to be honest. I mean, on top of all this shitty Justin Bieber crap that has been released, it's even being seen as good. It doesn't make any sense to me that such a horrible person who makes not very good music at all could ever be supported by anybody ever. It just doesn't make any sense, but that's how people work. They just kind of go with what the popular ethic is, the zeitgeist of music, I suppose. The next genre, which I haven't done ever before, is funk. Wolfpack's Thrill of the Arts. This was happening whilst I was looking for more music, because last night I did find very little music. So, it's very good. I would have put it as a standout, but I don't reckon the first time I do punk I could do a standout, really. If there was to be a standout, then it would have to be the last one on the punk genre. The second is Lettuce's Crush. This is less funky, but still as funky as a lot of other funk. It's really good. And of course, the one that I was talking about before, Prince's Stare. Prince, he's brilliant. He's stupid, but brilliant. Stupid in the fact that he's such a crazy fuck. The stories that you hear about Prince from anybody and everybody, you can listen to bloody Kevin Smith on stories about him, because Kevin Smith once was going to make a documentary with him, and that's quite crazy in itself. But he is a very crazy person. And this is by no means not up to standard of what the legendary Prince could release. Reggae, we only have one track, is Kiko Bun's Come Again, which I find quite, well, it's reggae, it's good. It's smooth and flowing and nice. Hip hop, J Prince has released Beautiful Mercy, which is quite a strange album. I like it a lot, but it is very, very strange. If you like experimental-ish sounds, like as I talked about Bowie before, he's very experimental. Maybe even Prince, you could say, is quite experimental. Then you'll probably like experimental hip-hop too, including J Prince. So the final news story. Mexican migrants have been leaving America to return to Mexico. They've been immigrating from America back to Mexico. Which is... I just thought I'd end on that, because it's... Well, it is what it is. So, have a good week, I guess. I'd better end the episode. Good luck, and see you next time.